hearty welcome to one and all. This is episode 124 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Tuesday afternoon, possibly into early evening with me. If you're checking out episode 124 on the YouTube channel or enjoying the content, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, share, comment, turn on those notifications. Perhaps you're going to check out this episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes. Same general rule applies. If you haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, share, turn on those notifications. So today is Bruce Willis's 69th birthday. And we all know that his health has taken a terrible downswing in the last couple of years. Nobody knows exactly when he started to show symptoms of what they call aphasia or frontotemporal dementia. It's all really bad. And he always seemed to me younger than his age. He's somebody who looked older when he was younger, and then I thought looked terrific in his later years. And some of the later roles he played, let's say 5-6 years ago, movies like Motherless Brooklyn, and some of the other films, the Red sequels, just because he had the shaven head, I didn't think that he looked particularly old. But because he had that boyish, smart alecky spirit, and I've mentioned how his performance style connected with Generation X. More so, and this doesn't mean that if you're a boomer or older, or if you're Generation Z, that you can't be a fan or have been a fan of Bruce Willis. But there's always something about the snark, the sarcasm, the cynical smirk resonates with Generation X, for sure. And I was a fan of him before he got into movies. Now, there's a little bit of a joke. One of my father's favorite movies ever is a film called The Verdict from 1982, starring Paul Newman. It was my dad's favorite Paul Newman movie, and that's really saying something because my father loved Paul Newman, and he could have given you chapter and verse on Newman's career. The Verdict was his favorite Paul Newman film. So this is about 6, maybe 7 or 8 months ago. I had already, not that this matters, but I was preparing to move in here, but I was still at my father's house getting everything together to complete the move. And a random night, I'm watching, Max, and the movie The Verdict, which I hadn't seen in probably 20 years. You know what? Let's give it a whirl. I'm in my father's house. This was his favorite Paul Newman, et cetera, et cetera. I'm watching a courtroom scene. Paul Newman is near the the plaintiff's table. He's the plaintiff's attorney in this film. And he stands up, and I see someone in the back, and I say, that looks like Bruce Willis. No, it can't be him. Can't be him. If Bruce Willis were even in a cameo or a walk-on in this movie, I would know. They show him again. I said, what the fuck? I paused the movie, and I just flipped to a certain spot, and I said, you son of a... It is Bruce Willis. It is Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is credited as a bystander in court in the movie The Verdict. So when I said he hadn't broken into movies, I was not deliberately lying, but it's not a speaking part, but he is in a pretty important scene. He's just there in court. But I became a fan of his on the TV show Moonlighting. Even though I was never the biggest TV person, there were certain shows of the 80s which I did watch. I was a fan of Family Ties, big fan. That was one of the few shows that I watched when it was on NBC and not just catching in rerun or syndication. And I really enjoyed Moonlighting. Sybil Shepherd, wow, I hate to say it this way, but what a gorgeous woman. Like, holy shit, Sybil Shepherd was just spectacular. And you go back to movies like Last Picture Show, which I mentioned yesterday, Peter Bogdanovich in 1971, the object of everyone's desire in that movie. And even its sequel, Texasville, with Jeff Bridges again, Bridges in another kind of signature performance. But in that movie, she's still, whether men or women, everybody wants Sybil Shepherd. And as Betsy in Taxi Driver, again, object of desire, Couldn't have been easy for Sybil to play that kind of role so many different times over so long of a stretch of time. But she did, and she did it beautifully. The kind of ethereal way she comes across in the 70s in both Last Picture Show and Taxi Driver, and to a lesser extent in Moonlighting. But the chemistry between the two of them was real and believable. And I feel like that's what I responded to. I was like 13, 14 years old. But even then, there was something about Bruce's smart alecky ways. It usually didn't devolve to nastiness. He simply was a wisecracking, smart aleck kind of a character on that show. Now, I remember when the movie Blind Date came out, and that was Bruce's entry into big league movies with Blake Edwards, Julie Andrews' husband, who did a lot of great, great movies. It's not really a good movie, even though the cast is impeccable. You have Bruce, and you have Kim Basinger, and the late, great Phil Hartman, and the incredible John Larroquette, who fucking steals the movie. He's hysterical in that film. It's not a great movie, but it's fun. And once again, Bruce has great chemistry with Kim Basinger. And I've always been a fan of hers, going back to Never Say Never Again with Connery, the last Bond film, the Renegade Bond film that Sir Sean starred in, and A Natural, where people have argued her performance sucks. It's not really the point. She is perfectly cast in The Natural. But Bruce had great chemistry with her. And what I meant to say about Kim Basinger, there are certain movies where it doesn't feel like she has particularly good chemistry with, her leading man or that kind of thing. And in Blind Date, she and Bruce click. It just felt like he was the kind of actor. They once said this about George Clooney years later. Clooney is just so affable. He could have chemistry with a table. He just is one of those people. And Bruce, especially in that era, whether it was his attitude, his performance style, the smirk, the look in his eyes, Bruce just had that magic, even though Blind Date was not entirely successful. Now, before I go into real heavy stuff with his career and some of, I hope, our shared favorite movies, I want to point out there are two movies that most Generation Xers who are movie fans will count if I were to ask you to name your top 5 Bruce Willis movies, and certainly top 10. We'll name these films, and I will not. I do not like Armageddon. I think it sucks. I love the cast and Liv Tyler and Ben Affleck and Will Patton. There are so many people in that movie I love. And I'm not anti-Jerry Bruckheimer either. I love Jerry Bruckheimer. And Michael Bay, I think, is a terrific filmmaker, even though, there was a lot of controversy because of the way that he cut, and he's a music video director and all this shit. I just think that Armageddon's a terrible movie. Relative especially to Deep Impact, which came out the same summer, 1998, and tells the same story, but does it in a way that resonated with me. Armageddon was just a lot of shit blowing up and a lot of screaming and yelling, and as the late great film critic Roger Ebert famously pointed out in his review on television too, there's about 10 different times in the movie where Bruce Willis or Ben or some other character screams, "It's gonna blow. It's gonna blow!" The movie's just not good. I'm sorry, it's not good. And I'm supposed to like The Fifth Element. It's directed by Luc Besson, who applies his very particular European sensibilities. I am a huge fan of Leon, aka The Professional. I think that is a top 10 greatest action movie ever made, hands down. So I like the filmmaker. Love Jean Reno in that film, love Natalie Portman, her film debut. Gary Oldman, fucking incredible. Bring me everyone. What do you mean everyone? Everyone! My masterpiece. Don't like The Fifth Element. Every time Chris Tucker opens his mouth, I want to scream for him to shut the fuck up. I hate that movie. Corbin Dallas, great name. Bruce's character. The cab driver is going to save the world. The movie just got under my skin. Now, there was another science fiction film that year, which was also very polarizing, more so than The Fifth Element, Starship Troopers. I love Starship Troopers. It's so stupid and over the top and ridiculous, as is The Fifth Element, but for whatever reason, Starship Troopers hit me a certain way. I think it's great. Doogie Howser, aka Neil Patrick Harris, he's funny. I just don't like The Fifth Element. My editorial comment, let the flaming and shaming commence. Come at me, bro. Neither The Fifth Element nor Armageddon to me are any good. And Bruce made them back to back and a belly to belly, as Yankee broadcaster John Sterling would say. He had Fifth Element in 97 and Armageddon in 98. And Armageddon was a huge hit. It was a bigger hit than Deep Impact. But just because it was a hit, the movie's not, it doesn't work. I love Billy Bob Thornton. He's completely wasted as the head of NASA. Compare Billy Bob in that movie to Ed Harris as the head of NASA, running it in Apollo 13. Hey, Billy Bob, as again, Roger Ebert pointed out, it looks like he's running a sports bar. Why did they make NASA look like a sports bar? I don't really think they made it look like a sports bar. But that was, again, Roger Ebert at his best when he mercilessly mocked the movie. Because he was a huge fan of Billy Bob Thornton. He said, what the hell is he doing in this movie? What is he doing here? But I digress. The key role when we take Bruce Willis's career in total, and this could be a little tricky with different actors, because when we think of Clint Eastwood, is Dirty Harry Callahan the first character that we think of? Maybe. But maybe the first character that we think of is National Geographic photographer Robert Kincaid, Bridges of Madison County. Maybe the first character that elder millennials think of and Gen Xers is Secret Service agent Frank Horrigan. Maybe the first character we think of, if we're boomers or Gen Xers, is William Money in Unforgiven. Or even maybe we think of Philo Beto. Right turn, Clyde. Right turn, Clyde. Right turn, Clyde. With Bruce Willis, I believe the answer to that question, even though, if we're being fair, only the first 3 Die Hard movies are good. The other ones are not good. Fourth one's okay. Timothy Olyphant makes it bearable. John McClane. New York City detective John McClane goes to Los Angeles. Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs. Now, when Die Hard was in the planning stages, and it's based on a book, I want to say the author's name was Roderick Thorpe, called Nothing Lasts Forever. It had a little bit to do with it, but they went off on their own. Bruce Willis was not the first choice to play John McClane. And this is the kind of thing that happens in Hollywood from the conceptual standpoint. Not everything was reported before social media. People only knew what they read in Daily Variety or The Hollywood Reporter or Premiere Magazine or Entertainment Weekly, or even sometimes the gossip columns, the Cindy Adams type pages or Liz Smith, where they would get some behind the scenes, information. But Bruce, despite Blind Date was somewhat successful, but the idea was that he was better than the material. That this guy had what it took. He could actually do something other than play this particular character. Comedic, smart alecky. He could still be comedic and smart alecky, but he had more, was the sense, is what I'm saying. But Die Hard it made the rounds with exactly who you would expect. This is not a criticism. This is a 1 + 1 = 2. It's the same thing with Will Smith getting Enemy of the State, only after every white actor in the range of ages 45 to 60 said, I don't think so. Because Enemy of the State was written for a white guy who was supposed to be 50-ish. So you go for, although Gibson was younger, you go for Gibson. You look at Costner. You wonder if Stallone could play this part. Clint's already too old. It's not going to be Clint. That's what we're talking about. I don't know if Bruce was actually up for Enemy of the State. That I don't know. But when Die Hard was when they were drawing it up in the 1986, 87 range, when they were trying to get it together, and John McTiernan, who was making Predator and fucking killed it, man. His direction in Predator, holy shit. It is tight. That's really good. If you didn't know, if somebody told you Predator, it's directed by James Cameron, you wouldn't look at it and say, oh, bullshit. That's how good John McTiernan's direction is. That it could have been made by James Cameron. The camera work is so fluid and the special effects are so seamless where you can't tell what's computer work, what's mechanical work, what's costume and makeup and production work. That's how good it is. So They supposedly asked Arnold, they asked Clint. I read once, I think they even asked Charles Bronson. I love Charles Bronson, but thank goodness the first Die Hard did not star Death Wish Paul Kersey himself, Charles Bronson. And obviously Bruce, a number of years ago, did a remake of Death Wish, which was fucking horrible. It was terrible. And I don't even think the Bronson movie's that good, actually. It's okay. But Die Hard more or less fell into Bruce Willis's lap. And I remember reading an interview with him in Newsday just before the release of Die Hard. The buzz was strong. People were saying, this movie is really going to work. The advanced buzz was Bruce was perfectly cast. The direction is beautiful. The performances are on the button, and the movie is going to be a hit. They weren't talking franchise. First movie's got to come out. But this is another example of an actor who could not have been any better suited to a particular role. And whether or not John McClane was always written as a smart aleck, wisecracking type character, because again, if you put that era Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Arnold Schwarzenegger of Twins came out a little bit later that year. He could have done it with the wisecracks and all of that, but the movie doesn't work as well if you have the Terminator taking on these puny little terrorists. I eat you for breakfast. I mean, we can have some laughs if he starts making fun of the fact that he's 3 times the size of Hans Gruber and all of the other guys, you girly men with your long hair. I mean, it could have been a riot, but it becomes a different movie, is the point. You wouldn't be able to take it as seriously because he's so much bigger than everybody else. It would have been a lot of good puns, though. I leave your suit in the trash, you Euro piece of shit. But Bruce makes you feel in that movie for the wisecracks and the jokes. 9 million terrorists in this world. I got to kill one with feet smaller than my sister. But you feel his character's anguish in the first part of the movie before everything goes wrong. When he's just a guy hoping to reconcile with a woman he loves. Bonnie Bedelia, another actress, a lot of people, oh, she's terrible. I think she's fine, especially in the first Die Hard. I believed in her, but Bruce makes you understand his character without beating you over the head with it. He still loves her. He still wants her. And he's hoping that something good comes of this trip rather than them starting a fight again. The original Die Hard was a huge hit. Even if it wasn't like the biggest box office hit, it did very well on VHS, and it had a very significant following of people right away who said, we got to have another movie. This is fucking great. And Die Hard 2 came out only 2 summers later. So as soon as the first one hit, the machinery began moving for a sequel. But another thing I liked about Bruce is that, yes, there are so many movies you can point to, from The Last Boy Scout, even to some extent Striking Distance. There are so many movies where he just played a guy who was a smart aleck. Look Who's Talking, where he plays a smart aleck, wisecrack baby Mikey, and Travolta and Kirstie Alley. But Bruce always challenged himself. He made quieter movies like In Country, which was not really successful. He did Sunset with James Garner, which was also not successful. And the movie that he thought was going to get him taken seriously as a dramatic actor, Bonfire of the Vanities, which, as I talked about on the channel, best-selling book, one of the great works of fiction probably in the last 50 years. Hugely praised book, as much as it is very polarizing and controversial in its own right because of the way it deals with race and religion and the media and everything like that. But Bruce was miscast in that film. He still gave it what he had. He was playing a reporter who was a British journalist in the book, and he plays him like Bruce Willis. Wisecracking reporter, hard-drinking, wisecracking reporter. To his credit, he was the only one in that production that knew they were fucked. He knew that they were not making a good movie when everyone, unfortunately, was convinced they were. There's not that much from Tom Hanks, but I don't think that Tom Hanks thought that he was going to be part of a disaster. But Bruce had a couple of moments in production where he was asking to confer with the filmmaker. He was a great filmmaker, Brian De Palma. but it was too big of a project and there were too many production issues for it to have been the success everyone envisioned. But Bruce was trying. The same year that he did Die Hard 2, which was a even way bigger success financially than the first one. It's not quite as good, but it's still good. But Bruce wasn't just banging out disposable action movies. He was stretching, he was trying different things. And something that always bothered me about Bruce's career, he should not have been the kind of figure that had people rooting for him to fail. He shouldn't have been. Because he came up and he was kind of an unknown. He had the singing career and he had the alter ego Bruno Radellini. If you want to Google that, where he did some singing, it actually wasn't terrible. But it just appeared that there were people not in the movie business, but there were people who reported on the movie business that were hoping that he would fail. And that always rubbed me the wrong way, because I could read between the lines in articles to where they're reporting, but it seems that they're hoping that shit goes wrong. That's something I've never liked about the gossip rags, whether it's somebody lighting another person up on Twitter because they don't like them, or back then when it was all print media. But Bruce made this movie, which has become a cult film, and you will find fierce defenders, Hudson Hawk. Now, Hudson Hawk, I saw when it hit VHS sometime late 1991. It sucks. It's terrible. It is terrible, but it's terrible in an entertaining way. And I understand why it became a cult film. And Richard E. Grant, an actor who, he's fucking riot. I follow him on Instagram. His Instagram is worth the price of admission to the app. He is hysterical. But the movie, Sandra Bernhard, it has elements which you can enjoy upon repeated viewings. There's a lot of interesting camera work. There's just a lot of really cool shit that takes place in that movie. But the idea at the time was, and they also fucking trying to tease the fact they were implying he had an affair with Andie MacDowell. He didn't. Come on. Because he was with Demi. It's just like there was so much bullshit that was written about this guy that me at age 17 was already seeing through. This is fucking nonsense. Unfortunately, the early previews for Hudson Hawk were all over the place, and people didn't know what they were getting, and they stayed away. I feel like if the movie had been marketed better, even in that crazy summer, 1991, with Naked Gun 2.5, which was a monster hit, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Costner and, Christian Slater, Sean Connery in a small role, huge hit, and Terminator 2, which just cleaned up. Hudson Hawk tanked. It didn't have to, it tanked. And then suddenly people are rooting for Bruce to make a comeback, but it's like, it was such crap the way he was treated. And he rarely spoke out of turn. Now, he could have been angry. He could have gone after people saying F you, and there was a little bit of that. But I don't think he even ever did as much as Stallone, who famously threatened to fight a reporter, a critic who didn't like one of his movies. Now, I love Sly, but I don't think Bruce ever did that, where somebody said, Bruce, your performance sucked. Hey, I'm going to fuck you up, Bill. He had me rooting for him, even as he made movies which were disappointments in the early part of the 90s. And he did the film with Sarah Jessica Parker, Dennis Farina, a great cast, Tom Sizemore, Striking Distance, which they thought was going to get him back, and that didn't really work, even though the story is actually pretty good. And Sarah Jessica Parker in that role is better than you would think. 94 was a key year for him. He had 3 movies, but even within the context of what I'm about to tell you, he was still getting dragged. He did a movie with, I want to say the actress's name was Jane March, did a film called Color of Night, which, oh my God, it was an NC-17 rating. OMG. There might be some simulated sex. Big fucking deal. So Bruce was at the Cannes Film Festival, and apparently, if memory serves, they screened Color of Night, and then there was a lot of jokes because Bruce's Johnson was on screen, and but he also knew that they were going to be screening Pulp Fiction. So whatever people were giggling about, Color of Night's a really shitty movie. It's bad. It's bad. Trust me on this. Now you can go watch it for yourself. It's terrible. It's a mystery that's not mysterious, and you know who the killer is going to be. It's not good. But when Pulp Fiction hit at Cannes, and Bruce was really at Cannes for Pulp Fiction, not for Color of Night. When Pulp Fiction hit, all of a sudden, the tenor of everything seemed to change. And this is stuff you can Google, just to check up on me to make sure that my recounting of this is accurate. People were talking up Bruce. Holy shit. Forget everything we said about Color of Night. This movie might actually win one of the top prizes here at Cannes. It ended up winning the Palme d'Or. It ended up winning the grand prize, the biggest prize at Cannes, with the jury chairperson that year was who? Dirty Harry himself, Clint Eastwood, who loved Pulp Fiction and championed it for the top prize. That is how much Clint loved it. Hey, American movies don't usually win, at least not back then. So Bruce had Pulp Fiction that year. Not surprisingly, he was passed over. There's no supporting actor nomination. Somehow, John Travolta, who I love, got a Best Actor nomination. And there were some people saying they thought he was going to win, but it appeared that Tom Hanks had it in a hammerlock that year, and that is exactly what ended up happening. But also that year, he played a supporting role in one of Paul Newman's last great lead performances and movies, Nobody's Fool. And Bruce did not give a movie star performance in that film. He was quiet. His character is kind of an asshole. He's married to Melanie Griffith in the film. He's not a particularly good husband. He's running around on her and whatever. But Bruce is great. And if somebody was going to say, well, what movie from that year? He could have gotten a supporting actor nomination for that movie because he was, in his quiet way, he was super effective. He let Paul Newman be Paul Newman. And even though Newman was 70 or pushing 70, his character was supposed to be 60, but he was a beaten up 60. So the fact that Paul Newman was looking more like 70, it made sense. It's not like a great movie, but Nobody's Fool is a movie to seek out, to watch Bruce interact with a legend and treat him with that level of respect. A Hollywood legend such as Paul Newman. He doesn't try to steal any scenes from him. He delivers most of his lines in the same quiet way. There's not any of the smart alecky shtick from his other roles. Now, of course, I could sit here for an hour talking about Bruce Willis's career, so I'm going to have to kind of skip over certain things. I love the third Die Hard. I think Die Hard with a Vengeance is brilliant, even though it was not originally supposed to be what we saw. There's a little bit of Hollywood history I'm going to get into here. You'll have to bear with me. This episode's probably going to go 40 minutes. It's the original conception, because as I say, Die Hard 2 was an enormous box office hit. Die Hard 3 was going to be set on a cruise ship. They had a script. I don't know who wrote it, not that it matters, but they had a script. Die Hard 3 was going to be set on a cruise ship. And then, in late 1992, Under Siege came out. Andrew Davis, the movie he made before The Fugitive with Tommy Lee Jones and Steven Seagal, who was in his salad days. It's not a cruise ship, it's a military ship, and there's a nuclear warhead and some terrorist activity. So when Under Siege was moving through production, even before it came out, it ended up being a bigger hit than anticipated. It's probably the best movie. Well, it's the best movie that Steven Seagal was ever in as a star. Most people would agree with that. Even got nominated for the Oscar for Best Sound. Says to answer to a tribute, did any movie Steven Seagal ever made? Yes, one Oscar nomination, Best Sound, for Under Siege. So with Under Siege getting ready to come out, well, we can't make a movie about terrorists taking over a cruise ship. We got terrorists taking over a military ship. We need something else. So Hollywood does something that I love. And I loved reading about this because when it happened, I thought this was fucking riot. So a writer who ended up having a great career, he did Breakdown, I think, and he didn't do Breakdown. He wrote the screenplay for Terminator 3, but his name is John Hensley. And John Hensley had written a spec script which sold for a shit ton of money in the early 90s called Simon Says. When Die Hard 3, the original conception, was thrown aside. Now, we can't do this. It won't work. Yeah, but we have Bruce. No. We can't. It's going to be 80% the same movie. It's just a different kind of ship. Like, that's how close it was. The same kind of guy was committing the attempted terrorist act. So the screenplay, Simon Says, was set in New York City. It had nothing to do with Die Hard. It was a standalone. It's set in New York City. It's about a New York City cop and a Good Samaritan who try to thwart a mad bomber whose name is, wait for it, Simon. Simon Says. So they decided to turn Simon Says into Die Hard 3. And the way they did that, which I thought was fantastic and brilliant, and I remember watching in the theaters like, holy shit, this is so cool. The big bad in Die Hard with a Vengeance, the fantastic British actor, Oscar winner for Reversal of Fortune a number of years prior, Jeremy Irons, who normally you wouldn't expect to see him in a movie like this. He plays Simon Gruber, the brother of Hans Gruber from the original Die Hard. And the movie does the same misdirection. It fucks around with our perception and Bruce's perception as John McClane for the third time. And there's a great moment where we realize that Simon Gruber doesn't give a shit. He's not doing this for a revenge for his brother. There's a stretch of the movie. We think he's going to avenge his brother. And he even is like joking around with Bruce's character, John McClane. See, I didn't even like him. I didn't even like him. I don't give a shit. Didn't even like him. So Bruce, one of his other huge hits and very well regarded movies, it's already, 25 years ago, The Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense is a movie I like. I did not unabashedly love it. And to be honest, I was stunned when it got as many Oscar nominations as it did, including Best Picture and Best Director. If you're asking me in 1999, would I have preferred The Matrix to get those nominations? Yeah, fuck yeah. I think The Matrix is a better movie than The Sixth Sense, even though there's no, I see dead people walking around like regular people. But Bruce's performance in Sixth Sense also is not a movie star performance. It's quiet. He holds the camera a certain way. He makes eye contact a certain way. It's a very interior. His scenes with, what's the name of the actress? I don't remember the name of the actress. She was in a lot of movies in the 90s. But his interactions, we understand why. I won't give it away, but we understand why. And it's another really strong performance by Bruce in a movie where he's the star, but he's not giving a classical movie star type performance. And I feel like after 1999, after that, he started making a lot of movies and taking assignments where he knew he wasn't going to be tested. And I should point out, I didn't like 12 Monkeys. Okay, I thought 12 Monkeys sucked. And that was a movie also that people were going berserk about when they saw it. And I saw it in theaters the night it opened and it was over. I was like, what the fuck what's going on here? Not good. Did not like it. But a lot of people thought it was the masterpiece. And I love Terry Gilliam, the filmmaker. He had done The Fisher King. Not a fan of 12 Monkeys. But looking at what Bruce did after The Sixth Sense, see, there are movies that other people love that it just didn't resonate with me. So I'm looking here. I didn't love Unbreakable. Did not. It was okay. I saw that in theaters also. To me, it was just okay. That's a cult movie. And then they made Glass and Split with, the same characters. And as I say, I'm a big M. Night Shyamalan fan. But my favorite M. Night Shyamalan film is Signs. And why? Well, two reasons. Because Joaquin Phoenix is fucking incredible. And Mel Gibson does not give a Mel Gibson performance. He gives a quieter, less showy, non-movie star kind of performance. And the story is really, really good to me in Signs. But Bruce made another movie that I'm supposed to like, The Whole Nine Yards. I could give you chapter and verse on friends who will tell me that's one of the funniest movies they've ever seen. It didn't do anything for me. Didn't like it. Sin City, I thought was just okay. Another movie that a lot of people absolutely love. Okay, I saw it once, and once was enough. 16 Blocks, I liked a lot. That's a movie that I very much enjoyed, and it surprised me. An actor, a Mos Def, but an actor I've always enjoyed watching, David Morse, because he has the kind of face where he can easily switch from sympathetic good guy to really horrible, devious villain. And in that movie, I think really works. But as I say, Live Free or Die Hard, the fourth entry in the series, it's only good because of Timothy Olyphant. Timothy Olyphant is one of those actors who brings it every single time. Whatever movie he's in is enriched because he's in it. The Girl Next Door with Emile Hirsch is only a good movie because Timothy Olyphant just kills it. He fucking kills it in that movie. He's the reason why the movie is good, not Emile Hirsch. He's why it's good. And I would say the same about the fourth Die Hard film. And then, and this is where it's a little bit sad. When Bruce's diagnosis, when we first heard about it, and I'm going to close on this. Kevin Smith and Bruce had a very difficult time working together on a movie called Cop Out, which I don't think was a box office hit. It's with Tracy Morgan. It's a buddy film. And Kevin Smith had talked at length before Bruce got sick that he was as big a Bruce Willis fan. Kevin Smith, successful filmmaker, but he said, Bruce was my favorite. I love Bruce Willis. And having the opportunity to work with him was a dream come true. And they just didn't get along. They just didn't hit it off. And Kevin Smith said some things about Bruce that he wished he could take back. And when Bruce was diagnosed, and you can Google this too, Kevin Smith, I want to say he wrote an open letter, but it was like he posted to his social media, like that kind of thing. He was crushed and he was devastated and apologetic and just wished that, he wished that Bruce wasn't going through this health situation, obviously, but he just wished that it had gone differently and that the two of them had been able to reach more of a rapprochement rather than the fact that they were constantly at odds. Because we can rip on somebody or say, I didn't really like this person or I didn't get along with them. But when somebody gets sick, it's different. And we saw it also more recently where Bruce and Sylvester Stallone had problems. Not so much Arnold, because remember the three guys had Planet Hollywood, the restaurant franchise. So they were pretty close friends. And Arnold and Sly, to this day, of course, are very close. But Sly was angry with Bruce because Bruce didn't... I'm not sure if it was Expendables 2 or 3. Bruce wanted too much money, and Sly basically told him to go to hell. And it appeared there were going to be hard feelings. And then when Bruce went down, Stallone he felt horrendous. And so he, in the manner of Kevin Smith, he apologized. And he did his best to make amends. And it seemed that they were able to. And it's unfortunate. We saw that Bruce worked so much in his later years that maybe he just didn't know what to do with himself. Some people don't like sitting home and taking time off. Some people feel the need to work all the time. And Bruce made a lot of those in the old days, we used to say straight to video or straight to DVD. Now straight to streaming, but not straight to streaming because there's a lot of great movies that are made for the streaming services that we see, Netflix originals or Prime or even Hulu or Apple. But Bruce made a lot of really bad movies. And I would say, if you're going to watch one more recent vintage Bruce Willis movie, and everyone who has seen it will tell you this, watch the movie Motherless Brooklyn, it's a period like a crime gangster type movie. And you can find online, people will say, it's the last movie that Bruce was definitely Bruce. And he is really, really good in that film. And so I realize I've left out probably some of your favorites. But as I said, I could talk Bruce Willis for a couple of hours just by myself and not stop because there's so much to say. A great career, even if there were certain movies of his I'm supposed to like that I don't. But a real underdog, not somebody who was ever expected to be a defining actor of his generation and for fans of Generation X. I mean, he's on the list. He's had more impact even than his pals Travolta and Nicolas Cage. And I love Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is, a lot younger. He's 9 years younger. But Nicolas Cage, as we said, had that stretch where he was doing nothing but straight to video, straight to DVD, straight to DVD, straight to streaming. What's wrong with this guy? And then he made the big comeback. And same with Travolta. We're still waiting for JT to make his comeback. But Bruce, no one knows how much time he has left. The family, they've given us enough information where it doesn't look good. And I just hope that, and don't blame me for this, please. I'm hoping that some kind of miracle takes place where his condition does not worsen and he's able to live the rest of his days, hopefully many years, in comfort. Because He's surrounded by so mmany people who love him. I follow all of the relevant people on social media for whatever that's worth. The daughters and Demi and Emma and everybody who is involved with him and, some of his friends. And he gave so much to the cinema. Took a lot of, to me, unwarranted shots, but he gave so much to the cinema and so much of himself to fans like myself, like Gen Xers, like Gen Z, like everybody. He never, at least the younger Bruce, he never phoned it in. There was always a logic to his performances and how he tried to come across on screen, whether it was TV or the movies. Bruce Willis, 69 years old today. With that, we've reached the end of episode 124 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you for joining me for this long and somewhat somber Bruce Willis episode. But if you caught this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you caught this episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, click like, subscribe, turn on those notifications. I'll be back with episode 125 real soon. Till then, peace.